Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cult Musical Zone. Today, we're talking about the seasonal cult musical classic, The Nightmare Before Christmas. And we have three cult musical aficionados, but also three Nightmare Before Christmas aficionados. Now, this is a really special episode, not only because we're approaching Christmas already, but also because this movie has existed in our consciousness forever before it was deemed a cult musical classic. So I would like to just go around and for everybody to introduce themselves, plug their socials, and talk about the first time they saw this cult musical classic. So since Renee popped up on the screen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Mary Puffins on Instagram, same name with the Z on the end. I am part of the Ordinary Kids Rocky Horror Shadowcast group, and we do a bunch of other random stuff. And the first time I saw this movie, I think it was on HBO. Honestly, I did not see it in the theater because I don't even know if it was playing anywhere near me because I lived in the boondocks. So I think I saw it on HBO and I was blown away because claymation or stop motion. I loved it.
And I love how you're dressed as a thing under the bed. Or not the thing
Yeah,
under
well,
the bed.
it's the Harlequin demon. Yeah.
I
Yay!
love it.
I love
Of
this
all
guy. I'm
the
like, what do
characters,
I
It's
have?
so
Okay.
cute.
I
Thank you.
love it so much. Uh, Jamie?
Yeah, well, hello. My name is Jamie Starling. I am a drag performer, burlesque performer, and shadowcaster based in Pittsburgh. And on my socials, it's Jamie with a no E at the end, just JAMI __ Starling on all my platforms. The E cost extra, so that's why I don't use it. Um, but anywho, I had to be peer pressured into watching Nightmare Before Christmas, actually. Become a very recent obsession of mine. I did not grow up watching this movie. I grew up seeing all of the merchandise and all of the hype around it. And like for me, it sometimes takes a while for me to get into popular things because of the hype. Sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, is it even worth the hype at this point? So eventually my friend bullied me into watching it. There's actual evidence of this
Good
bullying
friend.
because it was on another podcast that I did for a while called the Avatar Hour, and my friend Andre bullied me into watching it on the air. So you can find that if you listen to the podcast. But I finally watched it, and my initial reaction was like, "This is cute." I didn't really have very strong feelings about it until like about a year or so later when I rewatched it, and also I rewatched it because it has become a very important staple of performing actually around the holidays. So my shadow cast, a few of friends and I came together and did Kidnap the Sandy Clauses, Riff Raff, Magenta, and Columbia for a pre-show. And so of course that got me to watch the movie again. And eventually I was like, okay, upon rewatching it and listening to the soundtrack afterward, I'm like, okay, I can get the hype now, and I'll go further into it. But especially on the performing side of things, but I had to get pushed into liking it.
That's really
It
cool how
worked.
y'all did it for the
Yeah.
shadow cast, though.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
it's I'm sure that we'll post it on our pages real soon. If you follow the JCCP, JCCP will probably repost it. I was Riff Raff as, oh God, I can't even remember who's who at this point, but with Lock, Shock, and Barrel. And I feel like a fake fan now because I always forget who's who. But
Same.
I was the devil horned kid for that as Riff
Yeah.
Raff. So
And a returning guest who is a cult musical aficionado, Jordan. Introduce yourself and tell us about your socials and also the first time you saw this movie.
Hi everybody. My name is Jordan Van Ryn. I work as a baker, and I've been on YouTube since 2006. I started my channel when I was like 13. I started doing movies and videos when I was ever since I was 15 years old, and I've been doing all kinds of original video editing content ever since. My YouTube is Jordan Van Ryn. My name is Jordan Van Ryn, and it's of the same name. My Instagram is Jordan Renaissance Geek, and I took the Renaissance Geek and used it as the slogan for my channel. So, and the first time I watched Nightmare Before Christmas, the movie was released in 1993, and I was born around 1993, so I was not old to see the movie yet. But I remembered when I was in like in school, in elementary school, where they were showing the movie, and it was around the scene during this town meeting scene, and I became so engrossed into the animation that I actually wanted to buy a VHS tape to bring home and watch it. And it really imprinted on me ever since as a kid, because I am a lover of animation ever since Disney and non-Disney and Hayao Miyazaki, and stop motion animation is another one of my specialties. And this movie was not only one of my favorite animated films, but also it got me into like Tim Burton films as well.
Awesome. You guys are gonna be like, oh my God. So I don't care. I'm a Twilight stan. So I just like yesterday finished rewatching like all the Twilight films. And so when when someone says imprinted, I think about Renesmee. Anyway, so the first I'm old enough to remember. I don't know if anybody else. I'm from the South, and I don't know if you guys had this in the North or the East or the West, but we had a chain of toy stores called KB Toys that existed. Yeah, that existed in malls. And I remember distinctly being in KB Toys when I was 3, and they had the toys of The Nightmare Before Christmas. But it came and went without any sort of fanfare that I remember. And I remember probably when I was about 5 or 6, I rented the VHS from Blockbuster. But even then, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Dick Tracy, even though those were Disney movies, Disney did not release those movies under the Walt Disney Pictures Presents label on VHS. So I was really confused of it being Touchstone, but half Disney. But I remember, I believe we're all of the same age range, sort of, that we all kind of remember before this was a cult musical. I remember where it was almost impossible to find this on VHS. There was no merchandise, there were no costumes, there were no toys. There was really nothing. And it wasn't until the MySpace era, the emo MySpace era, that really resurrected The Nightmare Before Christmas. And like with other cult musicals, it was the fans that got the studio to really pay attention to the movie.
Well, this is, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this is going to be funny, but during the MySpace era, I actually was a goth around that time. And
we all were.
Yeah, every single one of us were. So those are great times. That's why I got my Evanescence t-shirt. Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, I was not a goth kid during the MySpace era. I was born in 99, about 6 years after The Nightmare Before Christmas released. So I am baby in comparison to a lot of people. And I, like, with my memory of Nightmare Before Christmas, like before I became a fan of it, is seeing it covering Hot Topic. And this is like more so the Hot Topic where they were having like Funko Pops, like, kind of that in-between era of where Hot Topic used to be and like where it is now. And it was just, I remember being just covered in Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. And that's partially what drew me away from it, because of the
commercialism.
Yeah, exactly. But through performing and celebrating this movie with other, like, kind of like, knowing that it's a popular movie now, it's performing it and seeing people's reactions to it and how much they love this movie. It's made me appreciate it. So I grew up in the post-cult era of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, that was all thanks to like ABC Family, because they were showing it on both 30 Nights of Halloween and 25 Days of Christmas. And Henry Selick, who co-directed the movie, even though he specifically said it was a Halloween movie, no more, no less, us, the fans, disagree, because it's a movie that you could watch on both Christmas and Halloween.
I think Jordan froze.
Yeah.
But I think it's like Renee and I talked about. It's sort of like Hocus Pocus, where Hocus Pocus really was a forgotten stepchild of the Walt Disney Company, but it was the fans that resurrected it. But
Hell
this
yeah.
movie, I mean, dissecting the plot of this movie, I can't remember the backstory, but I do know that the story came to Tim Burton before there was a film, and he just had an idea of a king of Halloween Town getting lost in a Christmas world. And I think that was the only premise that he had to sort of springboard off to create this original world. But what are y'all's original reactions to it then and now? I want to approach it from a different angle though. But what did you think of it then when you first saw it, your reactions to it, and then now? We'll start with you, Renee.
I loved it so much that I bought the CD, like the soundtrack, just like CD. Because I remember seeing it, I'm pretty sure it was on HBO, and then yeah, it hit the Disney Channel. I think it was after I saw it like a couple times that I really went for it. Because yeah, it disappeared. Like it was kind of like, kind of a Jim Henson deal. It's like, oh, it's this cool claymation stop motion, and that was it. But I loved it. I am a sucker for that stop motion, man, and I thought the concept was awesome. The aesthetic was so cool. I really came to appreciate that aesthetic. It blew my hat off. It's so cool. Knocked my block off.
It
But
did.
yeah, while I'm thrilled to see all the stuff in the stores, it did kind of get overdone.
I mean, that's Disney's way, but that was the Disney way to get overdone. I mean, on the one hand, we can all really appreciate that we can dress as Jack and Sally and have the toys and the dolls. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's that once Disney gets their claws into something, it pumps out. So we'll get into this, but
Yeah.
Jamie, so you saw it post cult musical
Yes.
phenomenon.
I saw
So-
it when it was on Disney Plus. Like I didn't watch it on DVD first. Like my first watching of it was not on 25 Days of Christmas or 31 Days of
Right.
Halloween. It was going on Disney Plus on my mom's account and pressing play. So I can definitely talk about like the, nowadays Nightmare Before Christmas, because that's what I have come up on.
Which is a
I
really
will
interesting
say-
angle.
Yeah, it definitely is. And also, it was because I'm a performer that I've come to appreciate Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't think that if I performed Nightmare Before Christmas characters and songs, that I would have had the appreciation that I do. I mentioned on the podcast before, I'm a drag king and a burlesque performer. I have not done burlesque as a Nightmare Before Christmas character, but I've been wanting to do a Sally act for super long. So next Christmas and Halloween, I will figure out how to make a tearaway Sally dress to make that happen. Stay tuned.
Do it.
But because I have a Jack act, my Jack Skellington costume is hanging up somewhere in the background there in my garment racks. But because I came up with my Jack act because I knew that people would recognize and be excited about having Jack perform on the stage. So of course, that forced me to listen to the soundtrack a few times. I had a mix for a while where it was Jack's lament into Marilyn Manson's version of This Is Halloween. I do not perform that anymore. I will update that if I ever do Jack again. But I have also performed as Sally with my girlfriend as Jack, and that just adds an extra layer of just aw to it. But through performing, it made me really appreciate the music. And the like just how much life and passion is in this movie, and being able to connect with people through this movie, like people I've never met before. Like I remember when I first showed up as Jack on stage, like that opening notes going into Jack's lament, I stepped out and people just screamed at the sight of me, and I hadn't even started lip syncing yet. Because that's just like you'd seen that passion, like, okay, I have to respect that. And then now it's like being someone who performed it and just shared it as a means to get tips and have a good Halloween and Christmas time, to something where I have a very heartfelt appreciation for it. So like I said, if I didn't perform, I probably wouldn't have had as much love for it as I do now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that happens sometimes because we're all a little bit rebellious, so we're all a little bit of a rebel. So like if something's so overdone and so oversaturated, you're like, I really don't want to be caught up in the hype of it all. but then you see something and you understand why there's a hype. Sometimes.
Mhm.
So I think it's interesting because I remember like the first I saw it probably when I was a kid, but then I got it on VHS before MySpace, before the whole MySpace, because as soon as MySpace hit in 2005, the whole emo subculture really embraced the Nightmare Before Christmas, and then Disney re-embraced it, and you started to have the tribute album with Marilyn Manson and a few other punk emo artists that were doing Nightmare Before Christmas songs. But Jordan, looking back now at your first experience and how you felt about it then and how you feel about it now, how do you feel about the movie now?
Well, here's the thing. I remember just seeing it as a kid, and I remembered it leaving such an impact on me. But then when I was 15, when I started making videos on YouTube, I always tried to like add a little gothic edge to it and I used Nightmare Before Christmas and other Tim Burton works like Sleepy Hollow, Sweeney Todd, Beetlejuice, and Edward Scissorhands, which are a lot of it basically like Tim Burton's classics. And they were kind of a part of me because they helped when I was in my goth phase. I wasn't really truly goth because usually goths tend to really like embrace the exact darkness, but I was never like that. I was more of like a goth who actually just enjoys Disney for the Disney villains. And I liked Nightmare Before Christmas because when I was a kid, I almost kind of like felt like I connected with both Jack and Sally because it was almost kind of like they may seem dark and brooding, but they had such a quaint innocence about it, especially when they discover Christmas Town. That's how I kind of feel. Like I try to be all dark and brooding. It was like my armor, but on the but I'm kind of like a softie inside. But when I look at it now, especially when I look at Burton's films nowadays, here's the thing. I'm consider myself an artist as well as a filmmaker with my videos, and the purpose of being an artist is that you have to grow and change your styles, and that helps me grow as an artist. Burton, unfortunately, kind of doesn't want to change. Every single one of his films now is almost kind of like he's using the same old aesthetic, which is almost just kind of like really ridiculous. Now, he did say
That's controversial.
Yeah, no, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but let me explain. The recent ones just almost kind of felt like he's using the same old shtick and not coming up with something new. Like when he did Big Fish, that was different, and he should have done more of that and grow out of the goth phase and be respected as a filmmaker. But then after he did Wednesday, and as somebody who was a serious Addams Family movie fan, especially after Christina Ricci's performance, when I saw that version, there was not an inch of Addams Family in it, and it was all nothing but Tim Burton, and they just wanted to hype up Wednesday. And I just kind of felt like his older works were better. And I think when I mean by using a truly gothic film, there are so many other diverse works that are gothic to me. Like there's Guillermo del Toro, Anne Rice, and Victor Hugo's Notre Dame de Paris, and any of the vampire Japanese animes, and oh my God, Coppola's Dracula was gothic. There's a lot of things that are gothic, but I think Tim Burton, no offense, should really try to grow a little more as a director. But he did, in fact, get some inspiration for some of his movies. Like Sleepy Hollow, he had Francis Ford Coppola help out on that as the producer. And for Sweeney Todd, not only is it thanks to Stephen Sondheim, but it's also thanks to John Logan, who was the writer of Penny Dreadful, which is why it worked. So I'm just saying, look, yeah.
Oh,
so
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So I'm just saying, as an artist, Burton needs to kind of break away from his goth phase to kind of dabble into more original stuff, kind of like Big Fish. That's my opinion.
Wow. That was a good opinion, but
I know,
yes,
I didn't mean to like like
It's all right.
that pissed off the Tim Burton fans. They're gonna come and kill me.
But but I think what's really original is because it was really brave of Disney to be able to, well, under their Touchstone label, because whatever Disney felt to be too mature that they wanted to do, of course, they would always release under Touchstone. They did the same thing with Splash, Dick Tracy. They did the same thing with Night Before Christmas and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So, but I think it was actually pretty kick-ass that Disney, at that time in 1992, decided to produce this film. And the plot of this film is so original. There's nothing that has ever been done like this before. The stop motion / claymation, I think, is just gorgeous. And I really think, and we'll talk about other claymation films that were inspired by this, but the plot of this movie is so endearing because you have villains who aren't necessarily terrible, that they're actually, you actually feel like you feel sad for you feel sorry for, and there's an endearing quality with the villains. And I see Mary Puffins squeezing the mayor.
Yeah. I love this guy.
But what do you think about?
I don't feel bad for Oogie Boogie. I don't feel bad for Dr. Finkelstein. I'm just going to say that right now.
Oogie
I don't feel bad
Boogie.
for either one of
Jack
them.
and Oogie Boogie have history. I haven't read the whole story, but they like knew each other when they were younger and like were BFFs. And then there was some kind of contention among like the then Pumpkin King that somehow turned them against each other in like this contest to see who would be the Pumpkin King. And I don't know how it turns out yet because I haven't gotten the rest of the comics, but they exist. I haven't.
That's
looked it
actually
up,
really
though.
cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
they have a
cool.
history. So I want to know like why Oogie Boogie went like full, Sith Lord.
But
Really,
the plot of this film, I mean, thinking about it when it was released, this was released during the Disney Renaissance. Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. This is pre-Lion King. So for this to fit nicely in between Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, and Lion King, for Disney to do this was like the antithesis of those sparkly Disney
Yeah.
princess movies.
Yeah.
And that's actually really kick-ass in terms of when it was released and the fact that they actually produced it. Yes, the movie basically disappeared off the face of the earth when it was first released. But at the same time, I mean, the plot is just gorgeous and gothic and beautiful and haunting.
Mhm.
And Jamie, when you first saw this film, I know you were like hesitant because of the whole hype of it all and because of how, I guess, the cultural landmark that it is now. But what did you think and what did you take away from the plot?
When I first watched it, I didn't have much of like knowing exactly what the plot was. I just know that Jack finds Christmas and does things with it, which is basically the plot. It's not wrong there. But like I didn't think too much of like the story itself. I didn't, I was like, okay, it's not particularly complicated or deep or anything like that. But like you can definitely draw a lot of conclusions from this movie if you think on it. There's some good video essays out there about like, Nightmare Before Christmas and like Burnout and things like that. And so like, yeah, there's actually a video essay. I can't remember the channel name. I have to find it. But like I feel like it doesn't like it has like the world itself is so rich, and that's more so what draws me into The Nightmare Before Christmas, and still kind of enchanted me even then when I wasn't like as big of a fan of it. I was more like, okay, like the plot itself, the story itself didn't quite like grab me then, but the world and like even just that earnestness of the characters is something I could appreciate more than anything. And that's what still sticks with me, to be honest.
The plot is so deep. The
Mhm.
plot is so
I
deep.
didn't think it was then. That's my point. I'm not shitting on it.
Well,
No, of
I,
course not.
I think for me, like, I really loved the use of the world building in this movie. And I think, like, as a kid, I was so engrossed with how each of the holidays had their own specific world. And
Yeah.
and I think like the reason why it makes the plot so necessary is that it really kind of was like it kind of like came out during a time when there was it was kind of like impossible to make children's movies so dark, even though the and everything that came before was pretty darn dark in and of itself. But the 90s were considered like such a wholesome time for animated movies. And I think for The Nightmare Before Christmas, the plot for me, I really kind of saw this as like both a comedy, a cautionary tale, but also a really good allegory of how sometimes there are certain things that might not mix, that they might fit, but they just don't. And that really kind of shows because Jack was, even though he was kind of like the hero, but he was clearly one of the most misguided characters out there because he wanted to try something different, but he doesn't quite understand the differences between his world and Santa's world. And he thinks he does something good, but it ends up in a disaster. And in a way, it was kind of like my introduction to the Christmas horror movie or holiday horror, right?
That should be a drag queen's name, Holiday Horror.
Yeah.
I always saw this as an allegory for, I know this is a weird interpretation, but I mean, Jack almost, I don't know if this was Tim Burton's consciousness when he was writing this, but I feel like Jack teaches humanity that commercialism is not the most important part of Christmas, because after Christmas is quote unquote ruined, the people are still celebrating because Jack thinks it's all about the toys and it's all about the decorations, it's about the music. But it's sort of like the Grinch whole sort of thing. I mean, there is a common thread that sort of exists within all of that they think it's all about the commercialism and the presents and the decorations and the toys, when actually Jack and the Grinch learn that actually the spirit of Christmas is what people look forward to, the love and the happiness. It's not necessarily toys. And I think that's what Jack took away from it. And I don't know, which is kind of a deep message, kind of a light message for Tim Burton, honestly. I know Tim Burton gets a lot of flack for repeating tropes again and again and again. And I mean, he has been guilty of that. But I think with this, I mean, there could be so many different, like I think Jamie alluded to this, there could be so many different interpretations for the plot of this movie. I think there could be master's thesis, there could be PhD theses on this. I mean, one could even argue that possibly Tim Burton was writing about the over commercialization of Disney that started to happen in the 1990s.
Yes.
Because that's when it started. Because that's really when this whole 3 Disney movies a year, toys, movies, posters, characters started happening in the 90s. I mean, The Little Mermaid sort of spearheaded that, but then it sort of happened right after that, to where Disney sort of like, okay, we have this huge hit, now let's keep making hits. So I think Disney, I think they slept on The Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't think they were even aware of what Tim Burton was doing. I think they just wanted to nab him because of Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, Batman Returns. So we get into the next section, which is about this music. And of course, the music in this film is done by Tim Burton's frequent collaborator, Danny Elfman. Renee, do you have any thoughts about this insane, moody, dark, beautiful soundtrack?
Oh, I loved it. I fell so in love with it. I bought the CD Wait from the Disney store, from a magazine. Yes. I loved it so much. And I remember I was going to use one of the songs for like my high school talent show or something, but I never did because I didn't have the balls then to do what I'm doing now. But no, I memorized every word. I mean, I love the Patrick Stewart version of the original poem, which I don't know why they changed it. They had somebody different reading it in the movie, but the soundtrack is Patrick Stewart, and I don't know, personally, I love that. I could listen to him all day. But every song, every lyric to every song, I don't think there was a bad song in the lot. Maybe the weakest one was Sally's, maybe just because it was short and kind of soft, but the music just completely slaps. And Hades and I are doing the Oogie Boogie song for our pre-show on Saturday. That's how much we like
Nice.
the music. So
How are y'all going to incorporate that? What are y'all going to do with that?
she's got an Oogie Boogie costume, and she's gonna have like a reveal, as she do, to like her crazy drag outfit underneath with the fucking curly mustache and all that biz. I'm doing some kind of Santa thing. I'm not sure exactly what the costume is, but I have some Santa-y stuff. Last minute Lucy's, but yeah, we'll have video of it though. Probably.
Last Minute Lucy. That sounds like another
That
drag
sounds
queen.
great.
Last Minute
Yeah,
Lucy.
no, that's
I've always applauded Rocky Horror fans and Rocky Horror stands for incorporating like other cult musical classics, not only into like other like screenings and shadow casts, etc. But I've always applauded Rocky Horror fans for moving along with the times and incorporating this whole like these other cult musical classics in their pre-shows, like Hocus Pocus. I think I saw Randy, who's from Ordinary Kids. Wasn't she Jessica Rabbit at one point?
yeah, she did
Yeah,
a Jessica Rabbit
wow.
one. Yep.
And The Nightmare Before Christmas. And it's just, I applaud y'all because the creativity of Shadowcast are just unmatched. And it still blows my mind how you all embrace other cult musical classics and incorporate it with Rocky Horror. It's almost, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's also like and Jamie can attest to this, I'm sure, and you too, Renee. There's like a trend or like a thing with Rocky Horror fans will like during one screening of a film they'll dress like characters from another cult musical classic, like Hocus Pocus or Labyrinth.
Oh yeah,
or
we
Like
did something
as in,
similar
like-
with Little Shop of Horrors. We did Brad and Janet as Seymour and Audrey, and I had like this is before we did the actual shadow cast, like theme it sometimes.
I've been talking about doing like Jack and Sally as Riff Raff and Magenta at some
Yeah.
point. Like, we've talked about doing Gomez and Morticia as Riff Raff and Magenta. Like, and like I said, the pre-show that we came up with last year was The Servants as Lock, Shock, and Barrel doing
Wow.
Kidnap the Sandy Claus. And we incorporated some references to the Rocky Horror like choreography. We did some aspects of the Time War. We did some aspects of like Sweet Tea and all that. It's like, yeah. This movie would not be what it is today. Like, it would not be the movie without the music. That music is the soul of the movie. It is very recognizable. It is very like, I mean, to the point where now they're performing anniversary concerts with Danny Elfman and most of the original cast coming back and singing, and other artists singing, like Billie Eilish with Sally last year.
Yes.
Like, just the love for the music is very much earned because that is the beating heart of this movie, hands down. Even though like songs that aren't like, the more popular ones that people tend to sing, or enjoy on the soundtrack, they're still fabulous. Like I said, it's so recognizable, and even like I think I agree with Renee. Sally's song should have been longer.
Yes.
It is currently my favorite. So
Sorry.
I wish it was
Yeah.
longer. It should have been longer. It should have been
Yeah,
longer.
I gotta agree with that. I wish it could have been longer too. But for me, like the reason why I really like the Nightmare Before Christmas music is because it's just so different than what I normally would see in like any other Disney movies or non-Disney movies. But the music for me always gives me kind of a cozy kind of feeling, even despite the fact that it's spooky, right?
It's whimsical. It's very
It's
Yeah.
melancholy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
melancholy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
very
and-
melancholy.
And I really like.
melancholy and the whimsical and the gothic. Like, it's just a very
Yeah.
unique concoction.
They
of
do establish
moods.
from the get-go that they're not mean. They establish they're
Yeah.
like, that's our job. We're not mean. This is
Yeah, I
fine.
love that. And it's great. And I really like how each of the Halloween characters, like they're really not here to like hurt anybody. It's just that they live together, and in a way it's almost gonna like I wouldn't mind visiting. And I'm gonna say this, I loved that during the song Making Christmas, I loved that song so much because it was Halloween creatures making their own toys. And I love that they put so much passion into making the gifts that it almost kind of feels like I want some of those gifts. Like I would want the doll. I would want like the strange looking things and all those types of things. And it's almost kind of like I would love the bat hat. In fact, I actually got that Flappy Bat hat from Spencer's Gifts when they were like advertising for the
Spencer's.
movie, and I got it. Oh my god, it was so cool! And the way you push it, you pull it, and then the bat wings flap. It's so fun, and I love it. That's one thing I really do treasure. And the music for me, I love how it just gives me it really touches my heart for some reason, because even though it's whimsical, melancholy, and gothic, but there's a glint of hope within all of it, and that's all thanks to Danny Elfman.
And I'm not, believe it or not, I know he's a cult musical icon. I'm not the biggest, massive fan of Danny Elfman or the Elfman brothers, but I mean, he's a frequent collaborator with Tim Burton. So you couldn't have a Tim Burton film without having Danny Elfman. Did the music for Forbidden Zone, Batman, etc. But I think what's really beautiful about this music is that even the instruments are different. And Sally's songs, I mean, there's like violins and kinds of instruments you would never accordions, instruments you would never hear in a Disney film. And I think that's what makes the music, it's almost depressing, but at the same time, it's comforting. Because you hear a lot of the songs that take place within Halloween Town, if you've noticed, are very accordions, violins, are really sad. But once Jack enters the Christmas world, you have the sleigh bells, you have, all these beautiful instruments. And I think that was so genius of Danny Elfman to compose the music that way, to where Jack is and where the characters are, the music sounds different. Even the instruments are different. The tempo's different. Because most of the songs within Halloween Town are slow, or they have a sort of like a slow beat to it. So I just think the music is so recognizable. Obviously so recognizable that when it became this big MySpace emo punk thing, you had that, I don't remember who was all on that tribute album, and Marilyn Manson was on it. I think Evanescence was on it. Amy Lee from Evanescence. And a couple other like...
Fiona Apple, I think, covered Sally's song as
Of
well.
course she did. Of course she did.
And gosh, I can't remember who else was on the sound.
Huh?
Don't forget Helena Bonham Carter. She also sang it too.
Nice.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I'm just completely brain farting on like the reimagined, but even with like different artists bringing their unique sound to it, it's just, it just adds to it, to be honest. It adds to like the canon and the feeling of it.
And this movie means so much to people. I know that sounds so cliche. Oh, it means so much, but it really truly does. Like, it really does mean a lot to people. And I think it's because it's not only nostalgia about like what it represents, obviously, and how original it is, but I think it means a lot to people because movies like this and Hocus Pocus, they come from a very squeaky clean company that are all about profit. And there are pockets of windows where Disney takes chances. Hocus Pocus, Black Cauldron, Renee's favorite, Return to Oz.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Return to Oz was so scary.
And Night Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Night Before Christmas. So it's like, it represents like people. The weirdos are always gravitate towards things, and sometimes big companies like this do things for weirdos, like The Night Before Christmas. So I think that's why it means so much to people. But I think what's really important to talk about is, even though this came from the heart and the mind and the soul of Tim Burton, it really wouldn't be made really without the genius of Henry Selick, who directed this film. Henry Selick was the one that burned the midnight oil and moved the clay animation characters, who added some things and twists to the stories. And I think Henry Selick, still to this day, he doesn't ever get the recognition he deserves for being a director or a writer. Tim Burton does write. Yeah, Tim Burton does write and does direct, but Henry Selick has directed a lot. And I think maybe his just dues will come one day in terms of his recognition. But we talked about the music, we've talked about the plot, and I really wanted to just talk about when everything started to change in terms of what this movie became. And of course, we're all talking about the MySpace era, but I do remember distinctly in 2005, this movie started to get merchandise, and as you can see, the poster, it started getting released under Walt Disney Pictures Presents The Night Before Christmas, and then it started to be shown every year. But there have been, of course, subsequent media at Disney World. There's been comic books. There's been a prequel, a sequel book. But before we get into the legacy of what you hope this movie is, I sort of want to sort of segue into the legacy of this movie and other films, because this movie sort of has inspired other stop motion claymation gothic movies,
Yes.
such as
Mm.
Corpse Bride, which is one of my
Yes.
favorite movies of all time. I love Corpse Bride.
Oh my God.
Coraline, and Paranorman. So, what do y'all think about this lost art of claymation and why it's so gorgeous and why it's such an injustice that we don't get more claymation movies made?
Well, I'm gonna say, as an animation aficionado and a fan, like animation is really hard for me to do, but I love it. But I really think claymation and stop motion animation deserves to get recognized as a piece of art, because when I watch The Nightmare Before Christmas, I see the amount of craftsmanship in every single frame. And the way they managed to do all this just kind of blows me away. I see that when I watch Coraline or Kubo and the
Mhm.
Two Strings, and recently Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, his own take,
Pinocchio.
yeah, which took 15 years to make, and is is one of Del Toro's passion projects. And I was nervous for that movie because, like, I was always scared of Pinocchio as a kid. But then when I watched it, the amount of craftsmanship that went into that was so awesome, and it was such a tearjerker of a movie, and especially coming from a horror director by Guillermo del Toro. But Guillermo del Toro was right about one thing: animation is cinema. It's not a genre for kids, it's a medium. And I think with stop motion animation or claymation, I think there should be more like this, especially when you're creating original stories that are like The Nightmare Before Christmas or anything by Laika. And in a
But I'm
way,
not familiar with the process of this particular film. But if you watch the making of, with the way that claymation and stop motion is done, they literally have to like move the character every time they have an
yeah,
expression or like a scene, and it's like Henry Selick. I mean, Tim Burton was there, sort of giving some tidbits, but Henry Selick was really the one that burned the midnight oil and moved Jack and moved Sally and moved these characters here, and it's like, is that sort of Renee and Jamie? I mean, what do you think of this? It's completely original form, a medium of animation. It's not CGI, it's not hand drawn, but do you think the whole claymation stop motion thing makes this movie what it is?
That animation style is unnatural and like uncanny to the eye. So, at least for me personally, was one of my favorite horror movies is The Gate. And it's because it has, have you seen that? The little creatures,
no,
like
I don't
the
think I
fact that
have.
they, oh,
I don't think I
it's
have.
messed up. It's from the 80s and they move stop motion. And there's something about that sort of animation that kind of puts you on edge. You're like, this is off in some way, but you can't look away either.
Mhm.
So I think that was a big, at least a big draw for me. And then knowing, yeah, like you have to take a picture, move it, picture,
Yeah.
move it, picture.
Mhm.
It's the amount of time it takes, I can't even imagine. And yeah, it's really a shame that Selick didn't get more credit, because I also heard that Tim Burton was not on the set as much as, oh, it was like 4 days or something, or 6 days, some kind of small.
Something. Yeah, something.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what happens. Jamie, when you first saw this film, did you find the animation style dated, or do you be like, oh my God, this is so cool?
No, I still respected that medium. I have always respected that medium. I grew up watching like the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie, and like, so I grew
Yeah.
up on stop motion animation and things like that. So of course I naturally would have a whole lot of respect for that art form. And I respect it so much. And one of the things that gives Nightmare its heart is the fact that people behind it were so passionate about this project that they would be willing to spend hours and hours and years to make the micro expressions, make the movements happen, build these sets and build an entire world out of these materials, that are maybe not most of the characters probably aren't that much bigger than this right here. So you know, I love my favorite kinds of movies are the ones where you can tell that they really loved what they were doing, no matter how hard it was. And Nightmare is one of my favorites now because I know that, because I have an inkling of what it was like to make the movie from reading about it and seeing the behind the scenes information.
Yeah, and luckily, I mean, because that sort of medium is no longer profitable because it costs so much, you know how people are. The thing is, it's not, studios don't think it's profitable because it costs so much to do it. There have been some really kick-ass people who have done those movies like Coraline, which I love, and Corpse Bride, which I think is one of Tim Burton's best movies, and then Jack and the Cuckoo Clock Heart, which is a French movie that was dubbed in English. But
I also want
and,
to
Paran- and
point out.
Paranorman.
I also
Go
would
ahead.
like to point out Wendell and Wild. That's a Netflix movie, and Henry Selick also directed that movie as
Oh, I
well.
never saw
I
that.
really
And
want to see that one.
it is
That one's
another
stop motion?
gothic, spooky stop motion movie. I believe it's Netflix exclusive. But Henry Selick did work on that, and I have not seen it yet either, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. And it has the Tim Burton aesthetic a little bit with that gothicness and whimsy and spooky. It definitely leans to the spooky a lot, I've heard, for it. So amazing. It's a movie about two demons and things like that. A girl makes a deal with two demons played by Key and Peele.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very I don't know. I've heard so many good things about it. So I just want to quickly point out another Henry Selick creation
I
that
love him
deserves
so
more
much.
love. So
I never saw that. I never saw that. And it's like
I
he
wanna see
deserves
it.
more love, but that whole medium, even if I don't believe Paranorman was stop motion. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it's stop motion the way that it's
yes.
animated. So even if it's not stop motion, to bring back that medium where there's, oh, what's that movie, Book of Life?
Yes.
They look a bit
And
stop
even
motion.
Yeah, in a way it was like that. But I think with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, the fact that it won an Oscar, I think
Mhm.
that one should definitely be a start to bringing back claymation, like
Mhm.
stop motion animation.
I agree. But what were you going to say, Jamie?
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, but yeah, we'll have to check that out. It's just people are hungry. If talk about the legacy in a minute, but people, and we're not going to get into the politics of Disney, but people, if you look at Disney nowadays and the sort of financial dire straits they're in, people are hungry for originality. People are
Yes.
starving for originality right now. People are tired of reboots, prequels, spin-offs,
Expanded
reimaginings.
universes, IPs.
Yeah.
Shared
so over
shared
it.
shared universes.
Oh
People
God.
are over that. It's because, I mean, we as consumers are now treated like consumers, and I think we're realizing that we're consumers now, and it's like people are gravitating towards original properties, and I think people are really hungry, and that's why these the movie you said a minute ago, Jamie, that's an original movie, and it's like now these smaller little studios like Netflix and Amazon Prime and these like Tubi and all these small studios are like the ones that are creating these original films, these original musicals, these original animated films, and it's really up to those big studios to not necessarily for once think to take a risk and to not worry
Mhm.
about profit. And because a lot of these films may flop at first, but they eventually find their audience, like Black Cauldron, like Hocus Pocus, like The Nightmare Before Christmas. And so I think people are just really hungry for not only nostalgia, but I think they're really hungry for originality. But talking about this legacy, there have been so many fans, I'm sure all of us, have died for Tim Burton to expand this world, for Jack to go to Easter World and go to Thanksgiving World. I don't know what he
Yeah,
would do in
that's my
Thanksgiving World.
expected.
I don't think it needs it.
No, but Tim Burton being the way that he is, with everything, he refuses to do that. And he's having sort of a renaissance in his career with the new Beetlejuice movie and Wednesday. And he said that of all the properties that he's let people sort of bastardize and all the prequels and spin-offs and sequels, he said that he's very protective of The Nightmare Before Christmas and he doesn't want a prequel, he doesn't want a sequel, he wants it to be left alone. And I get it, because if you look at all the prequels and spin-offs and sequels nowadays, they're shit.
Yes.
But
Oh my God.
All tea, all shades.
Yeah, screw
However-
Disney for all those awful
Go ahead, Jamie.
reboots and the
Mhm.
remakes.
Yeah.
I was done with
Get off
Disney
your
after they
soapbox.
bastardized the Lion King. And when I saw the
Yeah.
animation for Wish, it looked like cutscenes from a video game. I was just like, please, Disney, end it. End it
Yeah.
right now. Okay?
Jamie?
We do not need this.
It's frustrating. I understand. I will say with The Nightmare Before Christmas, I can't appreciate that they've taken steps to expand the world without like completely like stepping all
Right.
over the original. Like, for example, there's a new Sally book, Long Live the Pumpkin Queen,
Yeah.
which takes place, I think, about a year after The Nightmare Before Christmas and does
I wanna
explore
read
those
it.
other worlds. Like it explores like a world that wasn't in the movie. Like, I think there's like, the like Valentine's Day world. There's the but it is also another world of
Oh, wow.
dreams. There's a
Hmm.
dream world. So that's something, it's not quite a holiday, but it's still an interesting aspect of this world. And I definitely want to read it. I've heard good things about it. I also know that there's as Renee mentioned, the Jack and Oogie Boogie comic, expanding on their feud and things like that. I would like to see, I think would truly help keep that spirit of originality and, earnestness and, creativity that the original movie had, is if they allowed other mediums to shine with the story of Nightmare Before Christmas. Because Nightmare is a stop motion animation, underrated, underutilized thing. Graphic novels are, often overlooked because they're picture books. Similar to how claymations and animations associated with children, graphic novels are sometimes also associated with that, with being the comic books and things like that. So I think if anything, if they want to expand on Nightmare Before Christmas, really live up to the spirit of that originality and give this story to other underutilized art forms.
I agree. I would be completely okay
too.
with that.
Mhm.
I mean, as we talked about, the Labyrinth sequel just fell in development hell. They basically just canceled the
Yeah.
film. So after now getting the hype up since 2020, they just now, the Henson Company or the director just announced that it's fell in development hell. But there have been prequels and sequels to Labyrinth done in comic book and graphic novel form. And I don't think that impedes on the sacredness of movies if you do graphic novels or comic books, because it gives so many different interpretations.
Well, I think in the context of the Dark Crystal, I was so excited of seeing like the original prequel in season 1, but then they got canceled right after her first season. I just really think that I agree with Jamie here, because I really think that like there should be an expansion of certain worlds, like in many different mediums, but as long as you don't try to step over the original movie and try to at least give it the same respect as the original, that would work, And I don't mind expansions of worlds as long as it works in context of the story and it's not just like a whole bunch of like nonsense, I
What
like
the-
that it's in comic books. I love that,
This is really dark. This is really dark to say, but what the hell would Jack and Sally do in Easter World? Like collect Easter eggs at the foot of the cross at the crucifixion?
Oh God, I'm gonna say this, but that would be such not only would there be a lot of like angry Christians getting pissed off, but would that be the best dark humor we've ever seen?
It would be, but
Because-
if by that logic, then it would be more of the nativity in Christmas land. So, like, probably if they were to go to Easterland, it would probably lean more to the holiday
Easter
that
Bunny.
it's become with the more of the Easter bunny and pastels and eggs and things
Yes.
like that. So there's your answer right there. It would be more.
Yeah, but
I know.
yeah, but they would never
It's still
show
funny,
like
though.
the
It's still
cross
funny.
of Jesus's body. They would never want to do that because that would be way too controversial. You know what I mean?
just playing. I'm just playing. But Renee, what would you hope? Listen, y'all,
Follow that.
huh? What'd you say?
How am I supposed to follow that?
We're all losing our goddamn mind. What was what I was gonna say is I'm losing my goddamn mind. What kind of other mediums? I think there was a video, a
There
PlayStation
was
game
like
of Nightmare.
the Revenge of Oogie Boogie, and it was ass. It was not
It was
good.
not good.
The music,
Mm.
I personally felt the music in there was horrendous and a disrespect to Danny.
But on Jamie's point, like it could be sort of keep it sacredness without treading on, the sacredness of the films by doing other mediums such as graphic novels, which I think graphic novels, why the hell are people sleeping on graphic novels? I loved graphic novels growing up,
Me
our
too.
mangas, etc., mangas, etc. But I think there are other mediums to which we could explore these characters again. And um, I think with that, like, I think I don't want to say it's reserved for true fans, but I think book wise, yeah, book wise and graphic novels and comic book wise would be for people who actually really try hard or really want to really read the continuing adventures of these characters. But I don't know. I mean, it does leave much to the imagination, but I don't know. What do you think, Renee? Do you think this film really deserves to be explored in different mediums?
I think so. I think they're really on the right track with the exploring Jack and Oogie Boogie's relationship beforehand and like the establishment of like the hierarchy of Halloween Town. Because
Mhm.
it seems like in that the guy was not great. So I'm excited to read more. I just have to, actually find them.
I've never heard of this comic book series before.
I only found it because of Free Comic Book Day. It was one of them. I was like, huh? So I
Nice.
read it. I'm like, oh my God, they used to be besties. So I want to know what happened. See, I always try to find sympathy for the villain. Like, why did they do this though? Was it capitalism? It was
I
not.
would not be mad at. I know there was like talks a long time ago, but it fell in development hell. I would not be mad at, and I would actually love, because you think about Disney theatrics right now, they have The Lion King on Broadway, Mary Poppins, and Frozen. I would love a stage musical of this.
Oh my
I
God,
would
me
Me
love
too.
too.
still.
Oh my God. That needs to happen.
Puppetry.
Puppets, yeah.
My
Yes.
only
Lion King.
requirement
Yes.
is it's got to have fucking puppets. It's got to
And I want
have
It
stilt,
must.
stilt.
It must.
I want stilt walkers.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
We were
God,
talking
yes.
about
Did you guys hear about the Edward
Yeah.
Scissorhands ballet?
what the
No.
fuck?
Yes. Oh my God.
So there is a
That's not
ballet.
shit in
They
this art
made
form.
they made an entire ballet out of Edward Scissorhands.
Amazing.
The
Oh
snow
my
dance
God.
scene alone is incredible.
Where
It's
is
been
it on
popping up on my
YouTube?
TikTok feed. There's not the whole thing's not available yet to my knowledge, but I do
Oh,
know that you can
please.
find clips of it if you look it up. And like just it's fucking brilliant because like, it's just a fabulous way of using like dance to tell that story and just get that melancholy across and it's so good. It's so good.
I gotta
it looks
find
amazing.
this. I gotta find this. Like, if it ever is made available, I really want to see it because I know that like this bar called Rockwell Musical Parodies that's famous for the It musical parody. Like, they're already doing an Edward Scissorhands musical. It has not been released yet, and I'm trying to find it. You know?
But yeah, I think this would be beautiful on stage. And I like how you guys brought up
Yeah.
the Hollywood Bowl of RIP Paul Rubens.
Yeah.
I'm so glad he was able to see this movie take off and become what it is, and he got to perform as one of the Lock, Shock, and Barrel. I'm glad that he got to perform at the Hollywood Bowl, but RIP Paul Rubens. But I would love to see this on stage. I would love to see this done beautifully. I don't know. Would you like to expand the soundtrack and expand the songs if Danny Elfman came back?
If it's
I
Danny
would love to
Elfman
see it.
and came from the heart, let's fucking do it. I would love to. I love this style of music, so let's
Me
fucking
too.
go.
Me too. I would
Yes.
love to see a Nightmare Before Christmas musical in that scale, and I'll bet you it's going to win tons and tons of Tonys. I want that to happen for real.
Well, we got to write Disney. We got to write Disney. But Renee, could you Would you play the mayor, or would you play that creature that you're dressed as, and then Jamie can play Sally?
Absolutely. We had discussed like maybe doing a shadow cast of it if we could get away with it. And I was like, yo,
I
let
know
me
a
do
cast has gotten away
Zero.
with it. I know a cast who has done a shadow cast of The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Hell
It is
yeah.
the Zen Room in
Go
Long
for
Island,
it.
New York. They did
Go
The
for it.
Nightmare Before Christmas as a shadow cast. Just want to point that out. It has happened.
Well, let me ask
So
y'all.
it
Let
can
me
be
ask
done.
y'all. How did I mean? Are Disney and like Fox? I know Disney owns Fox now, but like Disney's never going to watch this, and they did and kiss my ass. But what I was going to say is, will they ever find out? How would they ever find out?
So
Are
like
they
think
that?
Disney's-
they're
I
dicks.
think, yeah, because Disney is a bunch of corporate jerks, corporate assholes. Okay, they're never gonna approve this because they're all in it for the cash, for the green, and that's
Jordan
why.
is Jordan is going to get Epstein, y'all. But
No, no, please don't let Disney try to come to kill me. Okay, they tried to take down my YouTube channel because of the Lion King commentary. Not even joking. I did a Lion King commentary. I can't do those Disney commentaries anymore thanks to Disney. Now I have to make original content. So thanks, Disney. I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't mean to go on a rant, but yeah.
Wow.
too late. But
Not
Renee,
even
you're
joking.
talking
I know,
about-
like for when we did Little Shop, Little Shop gets real shitty about it. So you can't
Really?
you can't say the words like shadow cast. So when we advertised, it was like prohibition era shit. Like we had to say, a live movie experience and have pictures of us in costume and hope people like understood what it meant.
It's just
Because
ridiculous.
they have like
because-
come and shut down the show like right as it was gonna go.
Oh my
Like they have
God,
done
it's-
that. Yeah, it happened to I was told it happened to a Rocky group that was doing that, and I was like, oh, so we had to be real careful. So I assume it would be something similar. But what I was saying before was I had a great idea, I thought, of doing Zero on like, a big
I
stick,
love
but
Zero.
like chicken wire and floating him around. Like that would be my role. And like maybe the Harlequin demon, but you'll see if we can get away with that in the future. It's been done
Jamie,
apparently. So
I don't want to harp on this too much, but I really want to see a shadow cast. Jamie, how do you think that Zen Room got away with that?
I am not sure. Shoot them a message and see how it went. I
Well,
just distinctly remember seeing the reels and seeing them rehearse and seeing them in costume, and
them
it looked
too.
like it went well.
Well, I just think that like with Zen Room's Shadowcast, especially when they did Rebo the Genetic Opera. Now I've seen Rebo the Genetic Opera. It's a really good musical and it's goth to the max, even more gothic than Burton combined because it's like so damn dark and it says something. But I just kind of feel like we need to have the freedom to be allowed to do shadowcasts the way we want to do it without corporations trying to shut us down because
you're right.
we are fans. Okay, we love this stuff, and they should allow us fans to be creative in our unique content. I mean, I've done Harry Potter content, and I didn't get shut down by Warner Brothers, but I loved it. I loved doing it, and that's why when we do this, we want to do it with passion.
But I think there's ways to be like just celebrate it. Shadowcast and can celebrate a movie without necessarily calling it like we're screening this movie. But cult musical fans are always having to, as we all know, cult musical fans are always having to jump over hurdles. I mean, they want to keep movies alive, but the studios make it almost damn near impossible for them to keep it alive. So it's like,
Yeah.
I know Dr. Horrible. I
I
don't think we could do it. Fuckers. Excuse my language.
No,
Oh,
it's
you're
okay.
Yeah, it's
But,
there's definitely some hurdles with Dr. Horrible.
But I want to see y'all do, if y'all ever do anything with Nightmare Before Christmas in terms of Shadowcast or in terms of pre-games, free shows, etc.
Oh, we
please
pregame,
share
baby.
them.
Pre-games? Oh, wow. I love games.
But I would love to see y'all dress, and I would love to see the costume because the artistry that goes into what y'all do is I applaud y'all because I'm not creative like that, so I could never do the costumes and stuff, and y'all make everything, and I just think it's so beautiful, and then I
You
are
just
y'all
have to
thinking
come
about
to
doing some?
us.
I
We'll
know,
get you
right?
set. You just need to live near us, and we'll
Just
fix
come to
that right away.
YimsCon. Come to
We should
I
YimsCon
want
next
live
year.
like
It's
as
August, right?
neighbors.
Yeah.
It's
Yes, it's
next August,
Labor
right?
Day week. Yeah, it's Labor Day weekend, end of August. Yeah, cult musical
And
fans, come to
I'm
Yeah,
YimsCon.
excited.
bring
We'll
it.
advertise it. And so
hmm
I'll ask this question. I've never asked this question before, and then we'll slowly fade out. I already have mine. If you had to pick a character that you resonated, that you would probably be if you got transformed into them, who would you be?
God. Probably this idiot because I love hats. I guess.
I don't know, because here's the thing, I can relate to both Jack and Sally. I can relate to Jack's, burnout and, being a performer and having, and putting on a show and the pressures of putting on a good show every year. But I can also relate to like Sally and, that courage it takes, not just to get out of your living situation where your parent is holding you, but her
Shit, that's deep.
like yeah, it's more
Yeah.
so like, just I can relate a lot more to Sally as I've like gone older and started like breaking some of my own cycles and habits from, how I was raised, and so I can relate to Sally in that regard as well. And I want to work more on my higher register so I can actually sing Sally's song live someday. But yeah,
Well, you make a
I don't
beautiful
have an answer.
Sally.
Thank you. I do love
Yeah.
doing her makeup. It's fun to do
Me
like the
too.
big eyes and like the white
Yeah.
eyeliner and like, the doll. It's just such a fun look to do. So I'm glad I got to do it tonight.
I love it. Jordan, who would you be?
I think I would be Jack because I just really think that his curiosity about trying something new and being able to create your own versions. And I always related to Jack because he always was kind of the character that I could always identify with when I want to like come up with some creative stuff. And when when he reacts to scene in Christmas Town, that's how I kind of feel when I see something that is just so amazing and so many ideas start flooding in and you get inspirations. And every time I listen to What's This, it's almost kind of like Jack's lament and then What's This is almost kind of like how I feel every day. Because I kind of like feel like, nah, I want to move on to something new. Oh wow, what's this? And I feel that way whenever I want to come up with original artistic ideas, when I want to paint or when I want to make a video or when I want to cook something. And I like that at the end that even though he wanted to do something good, he was able to admit that maybe I could just not try to get carried away or something and just try to focus it on the people, you know? And I feel that way too.
He reminds me of I don't know if Jack Skellington reminds you of Doug Jones, who plays Billy Butcherson in Hocus Pocus. He's always reminded me
Yeah.
of like
Gangly.
Billy Butcherson,
You know, this
gangly
is
and
gonna be
tall.
fun.
See
But
that.
if Nightmare Before Christmas ever becomes a musical, we want Doug Jones to play Jack. Okay?
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
just perfect casting.
Fuck yeah. He's great at
I
playing
would,
anything not human. Fantastic.
right? And he's tall. Oh,
I think I
I also
changed my
want to
hey,
give a oh,
I think I changed my
go,
answer.
what's your
Sorry.
go
answer?
ahead.
Go for it.
I think I resonate with Santa because I'm just trying to get through in the world and people keep bringing me in on their bullshit.
Here's the
Santa is
answer.
the most
Gonna do my
relatable
shit.
character in the show and in the
Like,
movie.
He's right.
These people show up and now everything's ruined and I gotta clean it up.
And he's just and he's also just like, you should have listened to Sally the entire time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you fucking should have.
Yeah, I really like Santa's character because he's like the only adult in the room, in a room filled with crazy rebellious teenagers.
I would
Yeah.
probably,
I was
there's
gonna
two
ask
people
that
that I
one
would
too.
like to be. I would like to be, I mean, as a kid, I was very I was very the devil. I was very mischievous. I was always getting in trouble, and I'm still a very mischievous person nowadays, believe it or not. But I think I think temperament wise and how I am and how ornery I am sometimes. I think I'm Dr. What's his name? Finkelstein.
It's Finkelstein, yeah.
I laugh. I remember watching this movie with my friend one day. She's like, why do you laugh at that one scene? It's not even funny. I love when he's like, poison me again. Or he's like,
Really?
He's like, you
he's like,
poisoned me. You know, this is like the second time this month you've poisoned me with deadly nightshade. It's 3 times. Like, or whatever the exact line is. But Sally corrected
and
him with a smile
he's
on her
always
face.
he's always asking Sally. He's like, he's like, why do you do this to me or something like that? I love him. He's so creepy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Finkelstein is like creepy, but at the same time, you can't help but love this character.
I don't.
Right. That's what I'm gonna be. That's what I'm gonna be for next Halloween. Lock. Already
Yes.
decided. That's what I'm gonna be.
Love
Yeah.
it.
And this is an age-old question. I know it's impossible to answer, but do you consider this a Christmas movie, a Halloween movie, or both?
The answer
Yes.
is yes, leaning towards Christmas a little bit.
Or
I think it's both.
Yes, I can agree it's both, but it's a tiny bit more in the Christmas
60-40.
Yeah,
60-40.
I can agree with Renee on that.
this movie gets me in the Christmas spirit, so I
Mhm.
consider it a Christmas movie. Very a la Gremlins, because Gremlins is a Christmas movie and it's fucked up.
Yeah.
It is.
So is Krampus, and so is
love Krampus.
Silent Night, Deadly Night, and so is like Black Christmas, and recently the Thanksgiving movie that also gets me.
Well,
in
I'm
the
seeing
holidays.
that this weekend.
Oh,
Nice.
it's so good! It's so good. That's all I have to say.
So we'll leave it with this. Do you have any further thoughts or final thoughts on this cult musical masterpiece and what you hope the legacy will be one day?
I also want to give a shout out to the fact that Chris Sarandon, who's this speaking voice for Jack Skellington, and then also Danny Elfman is the singing voice for Jack
Mhm.
Skellington, and the fact that their voices match so perfectly, you wouldn't even realize it.
I didn't realize that
Catherine
either.
O'Hara can fucking sing, and people don't often talk about that. Just want to bring that up.
Yeah, I love
She
Danny
does.
Elfman's singing voice.
Just shout out to the music. And I think that at this point, there's nothing that I need to add to the conversation, except if there was to be a name, because I know that in the past you've asked if you would come up with a name for
I
the
was
Nightmare Before
thinking about
Christmas
that
fandom.
question. Yes.
Here's the answer for you. It's just goths. That's
Yeah.
it. You don't. That's the fandom name. They're just goth kids.
Emos.
Well, the real gothicness is the friends we made along the way.
Exactly.
The weirdos. Do you have anything else to add, Renee, about what you hope this legacy will be?
I think it left a legacy in his aesthetic. Actually, it was goth before goth was like a thing, and
I
so
agree.
like right, so like you get all the stripes and you get the curly cues, and you start to associate like it becomes a thing. Like, oh yeah, that's very Tim Burton. You know what I mean? You see something curly, or like stripy, or like weird fucking hair going around. You know what I mean? He kind of created his own goth aesthetic that has a whimsy. It's less spiky and more curly. And I really like that.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
I never
It's
thought
beautiful.
of that.
It's
Well,
Right?
I
beautiful.
never really thought of that.
I love that style.
It's beautiful.
Like the whimsy of it, with taking away the harsh edges, I suppose. He like literally does that and makes it appealing.
Well,
Very
yeah. Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but I really kind of like think of my type of gothic as more of like Anne Rice or Notre Dame de Paris or Dracula, but sometimes a little Burton
Whimsy goth.
whimsical. Yeah, the whimsy goth is okay too. And I'm an Anne Rice fan, but I appreciate the whimsy goth as well. But Anne Rice was more of like serious.
Sexy goth.
With-
Yeah.
I
Serious
think Rocky.
sexy goth.
I think Rocky Horror was glam rock goth before there was a such thing as glam rock goth.
I
But
think
I
there
digress.
was. It was punk goth and camp goth.
Well, hopefully we can all get together and talk about Corpse Bride one day, because that I actually don't
We
come at me.
should.
Actually, don't come at me. This is the last thing I'll say. I actually prefer Corpse Bride to The Nightmare Before Christmas. Always have. I don't know. That might be contentious
Out
to
here breaking
say.
hearts. First Dr. Horrible, now this.
Yeah, right.
Dude, when you said Dr. Horrible was okay, I had a real Frankenfriend. I was like, okay, okay. You better than that.
It's
Oh, sorry. Boom.
this is the last thing I'll say. It's because, okay, yes, Neil Patrick is adorable. I love his family. I want that sort of family dynamic. But there's something about him that's very derpy. And I'm like, he's very derpy and very like, whoa.
Say
And
that
I'm
for
just
the
like,
say that for the Dr. Horrible episode, whenever that happens.
yes.
Yeah,
Thank y'all
James,
so
when's
much.
that what happening? James.
Whenever I can force myself to watch it again. Uh, it's a brand new day. But yes,
We'll
thank
film
you.
ours and then you can watch ours. And then we can do that
All
one.
right, I will. And then, but thank y'all so much for being here as always. I love talking to y'all.
You're welcome.
Same. I
Thank
love
you.
you